Hello and welcome to STARSIGHT Live. I'm Jack Davis, I'm on location, and this episode is going to be all about the nature of self, the nature of our identity. What is a spiritual awakening? What is the ego? What are we really? What is consciousness expansion? So let me take you back to the beginning of my consciousness expansion and awakening journey. It was about 5 years ago, and I found myself enamored with the possibility that there was more to life than the seemingly regular, normal existence that I had found myself in. I had a normal job, I had a normal life, things were good. I had nothing to really complain about, but I did have this sense that there was a purpose to my yearning for something deeper than what I was experiencing. I was very interested in science, I was very interested in metaphysics. I had this strong philosophical bent in me. I wanted to know kind of what the point of my life was. I'd been raised in an era where we were very much taught that there was a big bang, there was a lot of happenstance, and then somehow out of that, our lives were created. And I think it did leave me with a sense of a lack of purpose and a deep disconnect between all of the wonderful things that I felt, all of the passion that I had, all of the art that I wanted to explore, consume, and create, all of the purpose that I saw in my life, and then that story that really didn't carry through much purpose to it at all. And I suppose for most of my life, I did have a plan, didn't I? Like everyone else, I had a family. I went to school. I went to university. We don't all go to university. But, we have a bit of a locked-in idea as to where we might go. We see how other wonderful human beings in our lives are living, and we think, I'm going to emulate that and maybe do a couple of things differently. And I was very much like that. But I reached a block in the road, and I felt that where I was aiming for could never really give me what I was looking for. And it was at that point I started to flirt with a combination of meditation, psychedelics, and spirituality. I want to be clear, I'm not endorsing anything. I just want to tell my story sincerely and earnestly. And all of the language that I use is just language. Human thinking and language, it's been around for at most 100,000 years, probably only 50,000 years. And the English that I'm speaking today is not very old at all. So all of these concepts are flawed. And there's only so far we can go with time and logic and words. So don't worry about the words. If you don't relate to a certain word, if you don't relate to a certain concept, you probably do relate to the underlying truth that concept is pointing to. And I think sometimes when we get too caught in those linguistic differences, we miss the fact that really we're all the same. We're all conscious beings who are ultimately consciousness itself. And we're going through this journey of living our seemingly individual lives separate from the rest of the universe. And over time, letting go of that individuality. And that's how I would summarize the entire consciousness expansion and spiritual process. Spirituality for me is knowing that you are something bigger than your human identity. And as such, your identity is about more than whatever you could possibly experience or achieve in your short lifetime as this. This is kind of like the costume that we put on. For however long we're able to live this human life, we wear the costume and we forget that it is just a costume. And it means that we can end up being quite selfish and we can actually act against our true interests because it's just a costume. What we really are is all of reality. You could say nature, you could say God, you could say the universe. Again, that's just language. That's just language. So that's the long and the short of it. But I would sort of break my consciousness expansion journey into a few key, let's say, segments. On the one hand, I was very interested in awareness. So awareness is kind of this word that we're using as a portal to consciousness. Right now, if I'm thinking very physically, it seems as if there's a physical universe and there's consciousness somewhere behind my eyes that is perceiving it. That's seemingly true. It's at least how things appear. And for the sake of playing this game and engaging in this reality, that's very helpful. When I cover my eyes, when I close my eyes, I don't see the physical universe out there. And so I associate the center of my consciousness to some degree behind my head. But when you really look for that center, there's nothing there. And your ability to kind of aim your consciousness is a bit of an illusion. Like I can put my consciousness on my toe. And when I was first starting out, it really felt like there was something in here aiming at my toe or maybe aiming at the waterfall behind me, aiming at the camera, it feels like there's a center. But as you dive deeper into meditation, you start to notice that that too is an appearance. The belief, the feeling that there is something in the head, it really is a belief. It's a construct. It's something that we've learned. It's something that we were taught. And it's not a bad thing. It's good that we were taught these things, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to function as human beings. We wouldn't be able to learn things that are carried in the intellect. We wouldn't be able to develop skills and go on our wonderful adventures. The issue is when we completely forget that this is kind of like a game that we're playing. And I think we're doing it ultimately for fun and creative expression. And I suppose the entire spiritual awakening process is realizing that you're not just a brush stroke on the canvas of reality. You are the canvas, the blank canvas, and the brush stroke, and the brush, and the artist, all at once. And you're not necessarily going to be identified earnestly as all of those aspects at the same time. But as you go through a spiritual awakening journey, a consciousness expansion journey, an ego dissolution journey, I mean, there's no journey there, you will sort of identify more or less with each of these aspects. If you were to jump straight to non-duality, which is what I wanted to do because my human wanted to get enlightened. It's a very common part of the spiritual process to want to, I guess, skip to the back of the book. What are the answers? Then you're sort of letting go of the identification with anything on the screen of consciousness. So not the human self, not the spiritual self, not the higher self, just pure consciousness, which is ultimately what we are. And that's awesome. But it's not the only option. You can also spend time, I suppose, engaging with the potentiality that's unlocked. When you engage in those stepping stones between the ultimate truth, which is that we are all of reality and, time and space are illusory and there is no death and there is no time, there is no self, versus I want to have the coolest adventure I can in a way that fulfills this sense of being separate from the universe, which is something that the universe has created after all. So I would say the universe wants to express this way. And then, diving more deeply into some of the nuanced layers that pop out when we look at the more spiritual aspects.